Welcome to Necessary Roughness, presented to you by Stadium Rant. This is the review of the NFL Week 16. And dare I say that it was mild? It was actually really calm compared to the past 2 weeks. So I don't, we'll see how this goes. May not be as exciting as it was last week, but we'll get there. All right, so I've got Nick with me. I've got producer Chris with me. John is probably watching from his bed. He's a little bit under the weather this week, so John, feel better. Feel free to drop yourself in the comments and interact with us anyway, as if you were here. So let's talk about let's review what we're going to talk about. So we got hot topics, which we brought that back. So there's a couple things that we want to cover there. The winner's circle with some good games this week. We're talking playoffs because there's a lot of scenarios still in play right now. And then finally, we'll do our rapid fire pick'em. So let's start with this hot topics. So I would say that one of the more hot topics of the week was probably Tua. I think I've seen a lot on this topic, and I want to, Chris, you're already shaking your head, so I know you got thoughts. But I want to talk about, is it time for the Dolphins to potentially shut Tua down? This is what I would consider his third concussion, I believe, for this season. Many people don't have that many in a career, let alone in a season. And I've seen a lot of thoughts regarding, whether or not he knew he had a concussion, whether or not he should play. But Chris, I'll start with you, I guess. What are your thoughts on Tua? And Nick, I want to get you involved as well after we hear a little bit from Chris.
Yeah, for me, I personally think that it is time to shut Tua down for the rest of the season. Now, if they make the playoffs, then okay, maybe you think about bringing Tua back for the playoffs. But as of right now, if I'm Tua, I'm not playing another snap until next season. It's 3 concussions, and now this one was weird because it happened right before halftime. Or that's where they suspect that it happened at right before halftime. He took a hit and he hit his head. His head bounced off the turf. But they were saying, and I don't know. I'm a little confused with all of this because isn't that what the new protocol was supposed to be when, during the games, when you see a player take a hit that may have some implication of a concussion, then you take them to the side, you evaluate them, and then, if they pass, you go back in the game. And now, mind you, I know he didn't have any symptoms at that time. Like he wasn't showing any symptoms at that time, but I could have sworn that's what the new protocol was. Like that's what the new thing going forward was after that last concussion he suffered. So I could be wrong, but I just think that, for Tua, as of right now, I think it's time for him to shut it down.
Totally talking and totally on mute. Nick, what do you think about the situation?
Yeah, I mean, as Chris is saying, like, not only is like that's the new like protocol, also with somebody who's already been through the ringer this season with that same injury. I feel like if you are some kind of trainer of like the Miami Dolphins and you see that happen, you're like immediately you call over and say to Mike McDaniel or maybe somebody that didn't see it, hey, Tua might have had an injury right there. Like I know that he probably isn't showing us like that, but like he did hit his head. He probably is trying to stay in the game because this is an important game for us. But this is like, it's more than football, You want to have a life after your NFL career. So I think that he should be shut down. It's so hard to like, it's so hard to integrate football into like your personal life. I don't want to say like they're not a real Super Bowl threat. So it's not like, but like, it's not even about that. It's more about the fact that it's safety and the NFL safety protocols has done such a bad job this year. And as I said, as my starting point, especially with somebody who's gone through this already twice this year, I feel like this is just something that should have been like addressed right away. And I think those 3 interceptions he threw after the concussion was, it clearly affected him. He made some throws that like it didn't look like him, and he would every time he'd go back to the sideline, kind of shaking his head, and like I don't know, it just like didn't look like him. I'm a Bills fan. I know how he plays, and it's like his mannerisms, and he just felt so off. And I was like, there's definitely something going on with him. And after the game, when I found out that he had a concussion, I was not surprised. It just looked off. So yeah, I definitely think that he should be shut down. Obviously there'll probably be that 6th seed, but yeah, it's not a good situation, especially if you want to have him as your franchise guy. This like it screams Andrew Luck all over again to me, and I don't want that to happen for somebody who has so much potential.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny that you bring that up. Obviously, it's a really it's a very contested topic in Colts Nation, but we always talk about the protection and protecting the players, sometimes protecting them from themselves as well. And I feel like at this moment, like the Dolphins have to do what's best for Tua, like regardless of whatever Tua says or anything else like that. Like they've got to do what's best for Tua. And I'm not insinuating necessarily that Tua is like, hey, I want to play regardless. But what I'm saying is protect him at all costs. At the end of the day, we want him to have a career beyond, or we want him to have a life, beyond what his football career will be. And I will say this, it's probably likely very gutting for Dolphins fans, right? They've been hearing all offseason how Tua isn't this, Tua isn't that. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced, about Tua. And then he goes out and he has this horrific game. And, here's this narrative starts again. But what's missing in all this is that, like, Tua can do all these great things when he's healthy, when he's being protected. When he's not, clearly you could see that, he's not at his best. So they've got, in my opinion, I agree with you guys. They have to shut him down. I think I was, if you saw me scrolling, it's because I was looking for, I was trying to find the stats there, the difference there, but I think the biggest thing was the 3 fourth quarter INTs. And I believe RG3 has actually been very vocal this week about Tua needing to, he feels like Tua needs to retire for his safety. So we'll see what they do down the stretch. So prayers to Tua, and I really genuinely hope that the guy is okay. That also gives me, Chris, you'll remember this, but Austin Collie vibes. If you remember how many concussions that guy had, and he is a good player, but couldn't stay healthy because of so many concussions. And yeah, you want the best for Tua in that situation. So awesome. All right. So the next thing on the list is this MVP race. Now I want to pull this up. Let's see if I can get it here. Shout out to, there's a Twitter page called Buffalo Fanatics. And Nick, you might know them. But I'm going to put up this graphic, and it's a really nice one, but it's all about who the MVP race is, and it's between Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and then of course Jalen Hurts. I put this up because the numbers are fairly similar here, with, of course, Pat Mahomes leading the way. But I was curious, do you think that this is only between Pat Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, or is there someone else in the MVP race who we might need to consider? Nick, I'll go with you first.
I mean, I think that if Jalen's out for these last games, I think that kind of takes him out of it. It's so sad to say that, just because of how great a season, and just like a guy who used to, he used to be used as a gadget player when Carson Wentz was still there. They were like, we're going to use this guy as like, he's out wide, he can make some plays for us. But then it's like Carson Wentz is now like backing up Taylor Heineke, and Jalen Hurts is like one of the MVP frontrunners. It's unbelievable, the story he's had. But it's sad. That's why I'm saying it's sad to say that, like, if he misses these last 2 games, it kind of takes him out of the MVP race, just like stats wise. I think that these other guys are going to like catapult their stats over him so much that when you stack him up at the end of the year, it's like he played really well for all those games, but at the end, guys like Joe and Josh and Pat, like they all kind of raced past him like they were Seabiscuit, like something like that. But I think that, when it comes down to it, there's Josh Allen, who had that UCL injury, and he hasn't lost a game since the Minnesota game. So the game after he came back, obviously they lost in overtime, a game they should have won. Hasn't lost since. Then you got Joe Burrow, who's got his team, just the hottest team in the AFC. So he needs to be in that conversation. As we see a comment from John, JJ, he needs to be in the conversation as well. The season he's had for a wide receiver, you don't really see that very often. And I completely agree. I think Jefferson, he needs to be in the conversation. I think that it's between Mahomes, Burrow, Josh, and I guess you can put in Jefferson. But I really think that Hurts kind of just slides out of the race if he misses these last 2 games, because you have to play if you're going to be the MVP.
Yeah. Chris, are you on the same boat? What do you think?
So And part of this, I guess, is quarterback fatigue when it comes to MVP. Because I would love to see another skill position, win MVP, especially when you're having a season like a Jettis is having this year, or like Cooper Kupp had last year, or the year before with Derrick Henry when he rushed for over 2,000 yards. You would love to see them get the nod, them get some type of recognition for that, rather than offensive player of the year. Like I don't understand how you win offensive player of the year and you're just not even getting voted for an MVP, because MVP is most valuable player, and Jettis is definitely the most valuable player. Cooper Kupp was definitely the most valuable player last year. So, but for me right now, it is Patrick Mahomes to lose. I do think these other players are in the conversation. Like when you look at a Joe Burrow, you look at a Josh Allen, but at the same time, Patrick Mahomes right now, if he continues to play, which I'm sure he will, then he's still going to do what he's been doing the whole season. Jalen Hurts, I think when Jalen Hurts was healthy, it was between just pretty much those two. It was pretty much just those two, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts was having a phenomenal season. At this point, if he comes back, I just don't see him making up that ground that that the rest of these players have gone with at this point. But I think if Jettis goes over 2,000, you like, come on now, you get as a receiver to go over 2,000 yards, like you're breaking records at this point, and you've gone over 2,000 yards. His name has to be in the hat. Like he has to be in there.
Yeah, I would agree. So before Jalen Hurts got hurt, my MVP was Jalen Hurts. But with him missing these last couple of games now, yeah, it almost to Nick's point, like you got to take him out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If I didn't pick a quarterback, yeah, you got to go Justin Jefferson. The guy's just unbelievable. I'll say this: when we played them, in my mind, I was like, "Oh, this would be fantastic." We were able to stop this man for an entire game. Like you're just. You're just not stopping him, and like he knows it too. And now he's done these fake injury touchdown celebrations because he just knows, he knows he's that guy. Which hey, if I was a Vikings fan, I'd be stoked about him. I'm sure John's probably giving all the thumbs up and everything else as he's watching right now. But yeah, he's definitely in the conversation there. We'll see how this goes the last part of the week. But I would also say this, and this is my dark horse. If Trevor Lawrence keeps playing the way that he is, I know, well, let me get it out before you start shaking your head. No, Chris, good Lord. I'm not talking about necessarily stats per se, because the stats aren't going to wow you. They're not going to be Jalen Hurts. They're not going to be Patrick Mahomes numbers. But what Trevor Lawrence has done since week 9 of the season, it at least needs to be recognized, I think, in some form or fashion. So I would not be shocked to see kind of I would love to see a dark horse upset. I mean, I'm tired of the quarterback fatigue as well, but give me Trevor Lawrence and a nice little hey, MVP. Because I mean, otherwise the Jags aren't even in conversation right now without the play of Lawrence. So that's really where I feel like when I see an MVP, yeah, it's the stats, but it's he's put the team on his back the last several weeks. So that's my 2 cents about Trevor Lawrence.
I do agree with you with Trevor Lawrence. I do think he's been playing phenomenal the past few weeks. As far as a nod for MVP, I would give him a nod for Offensive Player of the Year. I would put him in that conversation over MVP, just at this point, because for me, the MVP, you have to have a season's worth of playing at a top level. Okay. And he didn't start doing that until later on in the season.
The Ravens game, they beat the Ravens at home.
The Ravens game.
It was an upset, and then now it look back, it really isn't that much of an upset. It was in Jacksonville. Now they're I saw a playoff bracket. If the playoffs started tomorrow or next Sunday, or whatever, it would be Jacksonville at home against Baltimore. And I think that if that's a game, that's where Trevor Lawrence can make his name and then go into the divisional game potentially. And that would be a really cool thing for him to catapult his career.
Yeah.
Kind of what
I
Burrow
think that
did.
Ravens game is where it clicked.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected Burrow to go to the Super Bowl. So Trevor Lawrence kind of has that. I mean, I think the 2 hottest quarterbacks in the league right now are definitely Burrow and Trevor. So Both of I mean, offensive player of the year, I'm giving that to Jefferson. Like, it's no doubt in my mind that it needs to be.
Yeah, for sure.
But I they need to make an MVP award and then a quarterback award somehow. Like, the MVP needs to be what it is, like what we're talking about, and then the quarterback, best quarterback of the league, like the entire season. Oh, it's Mahomes. All right, there's no debate about it because we're not talking about other guys. And then the MVP is Jefferson because he played so incredibly well. And where would Minnesota be without him? They would not be 12-3. Like, there's no way, because Kirk Cousins.
No way whatsoever would they be 12-3 right now.
Right.
That's good. That's good points. That's good points. Okay. All right. I'll give you that. All right. So we had one more hot topic, which I'll put this out there. There was already some debate when I posted the link to this article earlier about if this person was the greatest player ever for their franchise. But you know him as a legend for the Houston Texans and now Arizona Cardinals. But J.J. Watt has decided to step away from football, and he is announcing his retirement. That was earlier this month. And shout out to shameless plug for Louis Stewart, who's one of our Texans AFC South writers. He just wrote a really phenomenal piece on J.J. Watt. stadiumrant.com/NFL. You should be able to see that piece. It's on the front page, and if you go to AFC South, you'll see it underneath Texans. But Louis was saying that he was getting teared up writing this. Like, J.J. Watt was a hero for him, growing up in the city of Houston, and I think that can't be understated. JJ is one of the best to ever do it. So I'm really excited that we got to see this man play. I was reading that news today and I was like, oh man, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm not even gonna lie to you. If you watch this Cardinals Hard Knocks, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh boy, how long is JJ gonna keep, playing? He's still producing, but certainly they've shown clips of him coaching up others on the team and things like that, and very much showed hey, I can still go, but yeah, but handing baton to you now. So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on JJ Watt. Nick, 3 words if you could that describe JJ Watt whenever you think about his career.
All right, 3 words: fearless, powerful, and just ferocious. Those are my 3 words for him. Yep.
That's pretty solid. I like that. Chris, what you got?
I don't have 3 words. All I can say is he's a beast. Like, that's all I can say about JJ. He's a beast. Yeah.
2014, maybe the greatest defensive tackle season of all time. And that he should have won the MVP, but no, he won Defensive Player of the Year. Okay.
Exactly.
Because
and I mean, even now, right? Like, we during the AFC South, Mike said he thinks that JJ played past his prime. But and while I agree with him, but even now, 9.5 sacks. This is past your prime. 9.5 sacks is past your prime for JJ Watt. It's not past your prime for a lot of other players, but for JJ, that's past your prime. And I don't know, the way he played this last game against the Rams, you kind of saw because he balled out, but you kind of saw the way he was playing, he was just leaving it all out there. He was ready to just leave it all out there. And then when he walked off the field and you saw him look back, like they showed it, last night, you saw him look back kind of teary-eyed. You kind of got a sense that it was coming, that after this season he was probably done. But I mean, like I said, you could see in his play last night that I'm leaving it all out here. I'm giving it everything I got tonight, and I'm hanging it up.
And especially with the direction of his team. I mean, he kind of sees, recognizes they're not going anywhere. I think that if he was on a contender, it's so hard to make another move at this point in his career to another a contender. It's not even worth it to him. But I think that if he was on a contender, maybe he would, try to get one more season in there, just because, one more chance. Because I know he never won a ring, but I think that he recognizes the situation in Arizona. He doesn't really like it, so as he shouldn't. So yeah, it was an incredible career. He had 20 and a half sacks in 2014. He scored 5 touchdowns, 3 of them like offensive, which was like unbelievable. I remember playing Madden with him on like he was a tight end. It was really fun to play with. And yeah, he was just unbelievable. You know, congrats.
And guess who won MVP that year? Aaron freaking Rodgers. That man has stolen more MVPs from people than playoff wins.
This is why people have the quarterback fatigue, because like you basically have to turn backflips in order to get recognition. Like,
yeah,
he kind of did that though, didn't he? He tried his best. He's a big guy. He can't do a backflip, but he can score 5 times.
I mean. I will also say this: he has a son now too, and he's got a family. He got married. He's got a kid now. I mean, he's by all intents and purposes, he accomplished what he set out to do. And if you take a look at Louis' article, it talked about people calling that pick a bust, and it was terrible, and all these sorts of things or whatever else. And I mean, again, this is one of the greatest to ever do it, and I feel like I almost get goosebumps like thinking about JJ Watt. Like, I need to go look at how many times I've tweeted, Facebooked about JJ Watt, because it's usually me like, oh my gosh, JJ Watt just blew up another game. Oh, it's JJ Watt again. Like, that's how ridiculous. He could literally take over a game from his position, and it's unheard of to do that now. Like, it's wild, completely wild. So much respect to JJ Watt.
And not only that, but just like the selfless player that he is. Because I remember when he was in Houston, I want to say it was either his last year or the year before his last year in Houston. I remember he went up to, I think it was either D-Hop or Deshaun Watson, one of them, and apologized for the defense letting them down. Like he took ownership of things like that. So it was just, I don't know, it was just crazy. I mean, he had a phenomenal career. Like he's had a great career. And a lot of people wanted to say he's a bust or it was a terrible pick just because he had those injuries those years where he just couldn't stay healthy to save his life. But he gave a lot. There was a 4-year span where JJ was just that dominant force that, he was just dominant.
He's kind of just known as the best player in football if not Tom Brady, it was him. And what I'll say to close this up, at least the Watt name does not die off, because there's a man in Pittsburgh who's wreaking some havoc with the same last name. So there's something about that family, man. I mean, he's unbelievable. JJ's unbelievable. So
as their parents, like how much does that like make you beam with pride? Like, you got one kid who's a game wrecker and you got another one who's a game, like in the same family. Like,
and I mean, the other one's also a player in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a fullback. Derek's a fullback. So it's like you have 3 kids that made it to the NFL, and 2 of them are definite Hall of Famers.
It's crazy.
I'm sure his dad was like, Derek, you sure you want to be on offense? You're like, come on.
You don't want to go hit people like your brother?
He was like, nah, I'm good. Like, okay.
That's funny. That's funny. I think Mike left a comment too. Something about, I see JJ Watt. That's all I saw. And there he goes. Imagine if JJ Watt goes back to Houston to be the D-line coach for Lovey.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool. I think they would welcome him with open arms, but I wouldn't be shocked if JJ goes into like, broadcasting or something else like that. That's always, the kind of the option now for a lot of players. I feel like it would be great to see him in that sort of light. But I would not be shocked to see him come back into the city of Houston. I mean, when you think of the Texans, like in their history, like JJ Watt, Andre Johnson, Arian Foster, like those are the folks that you think about when you think about that franchise. So, all right, cool. Let's talk about this winner's circle. So John's not here tonight, but we're going to talk about this Vikings-Giants game. That's the first up on my list. And I want to say this. I don't know what it is about the Vikings, but they play with such a cardiac like mentality. Like, it's always hard out your chest. Like, you don't know if they're going to pull off the game. And I'm really curious about how long this is going to last, because it feels like they do this every week where like, I mean, it's like John, I think, said it, where like, they come out hot, they go through this lull, and then like all of a sudden they pull it together towards the end. But the Giants really had them on their heels for quite a bit of the game, all this back and forth. I really wasn't sure that the Vikings were going to survive, honestly. Nick, what did you think about the Vikings watching this game and watching this Giants team like kind of give them hell a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the Giants definitely had a lot of opportunities in this game, and I think they kind of just fell short. Obviously, the 61-yarder, um, it was a tough make for Giants fans because that, I mean, I'm sure that they were kind of riding momentum going into that kick, so it kind of, spur of the moment, it would have like given them even more confidence going in, and the momentum would have gone even higher going into overtime. They get the ball, maybe they score, the game's over. Never know. But the Vikings have shown me now that they've won enough close games that I honestly trust them. It's like you get lucky a few times, you win, a few 2-point, 3-point games, and then you win like every one of your wins is close. And you have 12 wins. And at that point, it's kind of like if they're in a close game, I trust them to win. However, if they're in the playoffs and they get blown out, I wouldn't be surprised because they've been blown out a few times. 3 times they've lost, it's been pretty convincing. So they've shown me that if they're in the playoffs and they're in a close game, I'm going to trust them that they pull it out because they've done it and they know it seems to be their culture. They have so much confidence with, Kirko Chains and Jettis, and they know what they're doing when it comes to closing games out. But they also have that factor that they can get blown out. And if that happened, I mean, and then of course you could be down 33-0 and come back and win a close game, right? You never know what's going to happen with this team. So I really don't know, but for NFL fans who maybe haven't been NFL fans for that long, watch the Minnesota Vikings because their games are fun to watch.
Just had to say it, huh? Just had to say it.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. And see,
you guys are happy, Mike. What do you mean?
and see, with the Vikings, man, like you said, Nick, they've won enough close games for it not to be fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was calling them frauds when they were playing us just because we had no business being up 33-0 against them, and it was pissing me off that we were up that much against the Vikings. So that's why I was calling them frauds, because I was just hot, like I was pissed off because we didn't need to be winning that game. But they've won enough close games to show that it is not fraudulent. And like you said, to the point, the games that they have lost, they've been convincing losses. When the games are close, I don't know what it is about Thuggin Cousins, but he finds a way. And then Jettis is Jettis, man. He's different. Jettis is just different. I don't know how else to put that, but yeah, man. I don't see them really going far in the playoffs though. But
well, and that's the point I was bringing up is like as much as they've been winning these close games or whatever else, at some point I feel like they're gonna meet a match that's going to like take them completely out of that.
Well,
but I will say that they have enough offensive weapons that it feels like they can get away with these kind of close games because somebody usually goes off. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's going to do Justin Jefferson things. But, like, for example, in the Colts-Vikings game, it was KJ Osborne. We got literally shredded by him. This game, it was TJ Hawkinson outside of Justin Jefferson. He had 13 receptions for 109 yards and completely ruined my chances of making the playoffs. So I feel like they do have enough, but I do get weary about, like, down the stretch, not just offensively, but their defense as well. And I think John hinted at that their defense was something that he was concerned about, letting teams back in games or whatever else. And if they come against someone who has, just as much offensive firepower as them, or perhaps a better defense, we can get Kirk Cousins off his game, then yeah, maybe they may not, go far in the playoffs. Who knows?
Well, the problem is for them is that, like, I think they're again, I was looking at this thing and it said like if the playoffs started tomorrow, and I think at this point in the year, it's kind of like accurate. You're kind of looking at that. It's week 17 now. And they would play Washington at home the first round. Okay, maybe you win that game, right? But then they'd play San Francisco. And it's like, even though you're at home, to your point, Meg, you play a defense that might get Kirk Cousins off his game. It's the best defense in the league. You play an offense that, has so many Pro Bowlers around Brock Purdy. And it's like, even though the game's in Minnesota, San Fran can hang. Like, there's games in the Dome. They're not going to be like, Obviously, there's home field advantage, but I don't know if San Fran's going to be really intimidated by that just because Brock Purdy's playing with house money. If he like screws up, nobody's going to be like on him. Like he brought them to this place. Nobody cares if you mess up at this point. That's what they need to be telling him. At least that's what I would be telling him. And I think he knows that. So that game, if that happens in Minnesota, San Francisco and Minnesota in the divisional, I would take San Fran in a close game just because there's so much defense that San Francisco has. If you look at every single, tier that, you got two like Pro Bowlers in the linebacking crew, got a safety, got corners, defensive line. It's unbelievable. And I think that if they run into that game, yeah, they're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Brock Shiesty, the future Colts quarterback.
Stop it. I can't deal with you.
We're trading a 5th round pick for Brock Shiesty.
Listen, every week it's someone different with you, and I'm just completely done. I'm just so done. All right, moving on. Cowboys, Eagles. Speaking of, different quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew was slinging it against the Cowboys. This is another like close game the Cowboys do manage to pull out. But I'm going to ask the same question. Should we be concerned about the Cowboys here? Because I feel like, and, again, I'm going to keep saying it because, hey, it happened. But since this Colts game and afterwards, they've had some very close games where they should have been blowing teams out convincingly, and they just haven't. They've let teams hang around, and magically they find a way towards the end, which is great. Good teams do find that. But should we be concerned about the Dallas Cowboys? Are they feeding into the narrative that is, the Cowboys of old? That's where I'm at. Chris, what do you think? You started smiling, so I'm going to ask you.
All right, so I'm going to preface this with this. Babe, if you're listening, don't kill me. No, I don't think anybody should be worried about the Cowboys. They may win their first round playoff matchup, but I don't think that, to me, this Cowboys team didn't feel any different. We've seen this from the Cowboys before, where they start off the season really hot and then they just start to fizzle off, somewhere down the road. Their defense starts off looking really good and then they just fizzle off down the road. Now, the defense against Gardner Minshew, yes, they let up Gardner Minshew. They let up a lot of yards to Gardner Minshew, but when they needed to, they stuck it out and they got turnovers. They did what they needed to do to win the game. But it's the same as the Colts game, where for me it was like with the Colts game, yeah, your defense forced like 4 turnovers in fourth quarter, but it wasn't like they made you really work hard for it. They pretty much gave you the ball. When you look at the Miles Sanders fumble, dude didn't punch out the ball. It's kind of like he just swiped at the ball and the ball just went flying. So for me, that's more so on the ball carrier than it was on the defender. And it just so happened that the Cowboys were able to get the ball back and they did what they did. And even I think last year the Cowboys were with us tied for like turnover differential. And we saw how that panned out in the playoffs. This year they're leading in turnover differential. So I'm not really sold on the Cowboys. I do think they're a good team, but I just don't think they're there yet. And I mean, that's crazy to say because their roster for the past 4 or 5 years has been stacked. Like their roster has been really good for the past 4 or 5 years. And to say that they're still not there yet, it's crazy because it's just, I don't know. I just don't think they're there yet.
Basically what he's trying to say is it's weird to say they're not there yet because when are you going to get there? Right?
Well,
pretty much. When are you going to arrive?
When is it going to happen? Right? Like who else are you going to get to make you get there? And it's like, it's such a valid point because it's like, this is the roster. This is it. If you're going to win a Super Bowl, this is it. And it's not good enough. And that's the problem. And, I look at the Jags loss a little different now just because I kind of see them as they've been really catapulting themselves over the last. He did.
That is nice.
He did, but they've been really hot, so I kind of look at that differently now. But at the same time, again, they would play Tampa in the first round, which is that's a game they can win. But in Philly, it's just not going to happen just because they don't play well on the road. They don't. I think I said it either last week or the week before. They don't adhere to pressure well. They go down instead of going up. They don't rise to the occasion. They melt. And if there's a big play and Dak needs to make it in Philadelphia in the playoffs, I could like more easily see him making a mistake than making the big play. And I need to see him make the big play before I can say anything else. So, as Stephen A always says, what can go wrong will go wrong, and I completely agree with that. I haven't seen anything that has shown me that I should believe in them. Beating a team that has a backup quarterback by only 6 points at home doesn't impress me. I mean, they should have won that game by at least 10. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But again, as Chris said, like they're there, and then they're not because they're not good enough to be there. So, yeah.
There's some comments there, I think. Toward an AFC South left one, and then John left one. That one's pretty long, but I think I can read it. It says the Cowboys are on a never-ending journey of trying to get somewhere they aren't going to get while the fans are yelling like kids in the back of the car. Are we there yet? That's fair. And I think John said this isn't a hot streak at the Baccarat table. It's a tangible extra year they excess in the fourth. Extra gear they excess in the fourth. I mean, here's the thing with the Cowboys, like, and we've been talking about it for years now with them. But the other thing is Dak is playing good football, but not great football, but not phenomenal football. And you've noticed in the last several games, he's made some critical mistakes, particularly interceptions. I really think about the Jaguars game as well. Like the Cowboys can only overcome so much. And to your point, like they haven't made enough plays to handedly win some of these games. They're winning because the other teams just aren't great, or they're shorthanded or whatever else. Like I haven't seen complete team domination, so to speak. I feel like their defense has kept them a lot in these games, and then the offense is like, okay, yeah, we can get on the field, but I worry about consistency down the stretch. So there's my thoughts on the Cowboys there. All right.
They've also given up 97 points in the last 3 games. That's not good. I mean, where's the defense gone? It's supposed to be
that is a spicy little nugget.
Yeah.
All right. So Pats Bengals. The Patriots, I feel so bad for their fans because this is a never-ending cycle, it feels like, with them, that like the Pats just can't get their lives together. The Bengals are playing really good football. I will say in this game, I was shocked that they let the Patriots come back in this game. Because I think they had, 18 unanswered points or something like that at one point. But the Patriots are just so bad. Like they were just ripping the hearts out from their fans.
Finally.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to be nice because I feel like as a Colts fan, I have some real like deep-rooted like hatred for the Patriots.
Yeah.
And a little bit of scar tissue from the Brady years. But now it's oh goodness. He said the Bengals are scary. And Mac Jones with a cheap shot on that interception return. I did see someone talk about that earlier this week. Mac Jones had a couple of interesting plays in his career on cheap or not so cheap shots. But they're what I was getting at is that they are having just these uncharacteristic plays. You finally come back and you fumble the ball. I don't even know. Don't even know what's happening with the Patriots right now. Nick, what do you think is the issues with the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I think. I think that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge or whatever, I think that they're being scapegoated. And I really do think Belichick's the problem here. I think that I mean, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. So obviously after he leaves, they're going to have some problems. They had some problems with the quarterback situation, didn't really know what they're doing. Went with Cam, didn't work. Now they're going with Mac Jones. They went with Zappy, back to Mac. The problem with what is happening with the Patriots right now is that they're beating themselves. And through those 20 years of dominance, they didn't do that. If you made a mistake against the New England Patriots, it's not going to end well. It's just not. So now, all of a sudden, you can make mistakes because guess what? They might make one way worse, a la the Raider game. Oof. They're going to make one, right back. So that was the whole thing with the Patriots and why it was so tough to beat. It's really hard to beat a team that doesn't get penalized, doesn't turn the ball over, and the defense is so stingy that you can't even move the ball from here to there. So now the problem is that the defense can't hold up if the offense is going to continue to make mistakes. And, fumbling the ball in the red zone on a potential game-winning drive, making all these mistakes with like throwing the ball back, losing the game against the Raiders. The problem is that they've started to beat themselves, which they never used to do under Belichick. And, it's not like changing. Like this has happened now a few times this year and now 2 times in a row. And even though they could still slide into that 7th spot, because I guess they're competing with the Jets, it's irrelevant because they're not a team that can, challenge any of the AFC contenders this year.
Yeah, I was while you were talking, it made me think about the Patriots have always been very lucky on plays. Now, I know that the Patriots, like, hey, they historically, of course, have taken mistakes and just essentially like blown them up in teams' faces, but they've also had a lot of luck in these games too. Just plays that you're like that only happens because it's a Patriots game. But now you're seeing where they're actually having to play dialed in football. They're having to be excellent in every single phase, and it feels like they are just unraveling at the seams. There's all this talk before the season about who's going to be the play caller. They don't want to talk about it. It's just clouded in mystery or whatever else. And that's what it looks like out on the field too. It looks like half the time, like they don't even know what's going on. There was this, controversy, so to speak, between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi at one point during the season. Like all of a sudden people aren't talking about that anymore, but that was a real thing at one point. Sure. So it's crazy to me to watch this happen in real time, but it's kind of what you expected after Tom Brady left. At some point, the Patriots were going to come back down to earth. And I think that's where we are now. So I think they'll climb their way out of it. But certainly this season is not probably what they had in mind, after such a good rookie season for Mac Jones. So, all right, we got 2 more. So we had Dolphins, Packers, and all of a sudden the Packers are like back in this thing. And I just feel like they're like that bug that won't die, that you're like, get away.
I'm not dying.
I mean, they're basically limping across the finish line, so to speak, duct taped together, and here they are. They've come out and convincingly, beat the Dolphins. What did you see from Aaron Rodgers that maybe looked different than maybe some of the play this season?
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers was good, not great. He's been a decent game manager this year, and obviously, the last 2 years he's been the MVP and he's made the plays to catapult the Packers to wins. It hasn't happened this year, but I mean, it was more so, and we talked about it at the top of the show with Tua getting hurt and then making some really uncharacteristic interceptions. Obviously, 3 picks in the last 3 possessions of the game.
Yep.
It's something that you can't. Unless you're up 40-10, you can't win if you're going to do that. And they weren't up 40-10. It was a close game all throughout the game. So Rodgers kind of did what he needed to, didn't make many mistakes. He threw an interception, and then Tua threw one literally on the next play. So that's not good. I mean, that's yeah. So it was more Miami beating themselves in this game than Green Bay really doing too much of greatness. But as you said, they're limping to the finish line, but they're getting wins, and they kind of had the best week they could have because every team they needed to lose lost. The Seahawks lost, the Giants lost, the Lions lost, really surprisingly. So every team that they needed to lose lost, and they got a really surprising win. I thought that they would, I thought they'd get burnt out in Miami. I really did. But they didn't, and they did a good job. I still think they should run the ball more, Aaron Jones, but they're doing a good job getting him involved in the passing game because that's their one playmaker on offense other than Christian Watson. Mm-hmm. And he's still a rookie, so you trust Aaron Jones, and I think Rodgers trusts him the most out of anybody. So he's throwing it to him a lot. They should still try to get him involved more in the run game, and AJ Dillon obviously as well, but. I think that they have an opportunity here at the end of the year to, I don't know, maybe get into that playoff spot, and you never know what happens with Rodgers in the playoffs. So it's been an impressive little few weeks.
I mean, we do know what happens with Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Usually, ends up at home, other than that one time.
No, but that's only when they're 13-3 or something.
Yeah,
who knows? Who knows what's going to happen if they're 9-8 going into the playoffs? They might actually make a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Unless they play the 49ers, then
Yeah, then you're at home.
So yeah, that was a surprising game for me. That was probably my most like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, of the week. But last game I want to bring up, and I feel like we are talking about the AFC South so much, and it's not because like we're Colts fans, but it's because like everyone else in the division is doing things. So the Jags now sit in first place in the division. Wow. But I'm here for it because, Titans fans are a bit much. And then they lost to the Texans this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this, I wasn't all that shocked. The Titans were 7-3. They've now lost 5 straight. They are battling with injuries. They're battling with Todd Downing as their offensive coordinator. They look absolutely lost. They looked lost in this game against the Texans. At times, it felt like neither team wanted to win the game, to be quite honest with you. And then all of a sudden, some things happened. Davis Mills hits a really nice touchdown. Things were going. Mm-hmm. But in the back of my mind, I was more like this game said more to me about the Titans than it did the Texans. Like the Texans are like, okay, hey, we can play spoiler or whatever else. Like, cool, we won another game. Maybe fans are upset because, hey, this could mess up with their, number one spot. But as far as like morale booster, yeah, Lovie Smith absolutely needed that. For me, if I'm a Titans fan, I'm concerned. The sky is falling right now. Far from the expectations that we had from the beginning of the season of running away with the division, so to speak. I don't think they were ever in on the Colts winning the division, as you know, Chris. You see this big laugh on Chris's face. But we heard from Titans fans all offseason about how it was their division, that sort of thing. And now I feel like they've come back down to reality in terms of, hey, these things happen. You got to rise up in spite of this because the thing is the division is still terrible. So I expected the Titans to at least continue, winning games, and now you're losing divisional games. I'm concerned, especially to the Texans. So, Chris, my thought to you is, I think at one point, and maybe it was earlier this season, Mike Vrabel was in talks of maybe being, coach of the year, considering, what he built on from last year. And now, like, what are your thoughts on Mike Vrabel now? Like, where does he go from here with his team? What message does he deliver to them?
I still think Vrabel's a good coach. I think he's just trying to navigate what's going on. And what I really think this says is I think this says a lot more on why they actually fired their GM. What was it now 3 weeks ago or something like that?
Several weeks ago. Yeah.
Which we were all like, dang, why now? But based on how things are going, it's kind of like, oh, we see why you're getting fired or why you got fired, halfway through the season. I don't know. I think if they have Ryan Tannehill, this may be a different game. Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry still ran for 126 yards. Like he still had a touchdown, but then you have your rookie quarterback come in and he throws 2 interceptions and he only has 99 yards on 23 pass attempts. And it's kind of like the first game they had against the Texans where when they played in Houston, Malik Willis didn't play that well. He had
55 yards.
Yeah, 55 yards and an interception, but Derrick Henry had 200 plus yards. So I think with the Texans, this game, it wasn't so much like, okay, we're not afraid of your weapons that you have on the outside and we're not afraid of your quarterback. What we're going to do is sell out to stop Derrick Henry. And containing Derrick Henry is, he still averaged 5.5 yards per carry, but he only had 126 yards. He didn't have the 200-yard game like he usually has against the Texans. Yeah. So I think Vrabel is just trying to navigate this and, make it through the rest of the season. And then hopefully they get a new offensive coordinator because that guy they got now sucks. Like he's terrible. It's not as bad as the Colts. I'm not going to go that far because what we have calling our offense is war criminals. But he's close. He's close to that. Yeah. He's close.
Yeah, Titans fans have been screaming about Todd Downing all season long. Yeah. And then his off the field issues don't exactly help either. So I feel like the Titans fans are just frustrated with the product that they're seeing on the field. I think that they're going to have some serious reflection to do if the Jags end up pulling off this win of the division, which is very possible. What I saw yesterday was that it does not matter what happens in week 17. It all comes down to week 18. Whoever wins that game wins the division. So let's go Jags. And at this point, I think the Jaguars could absolutely do it. They are a little beat up as well, but not as beat up as the Titans. Titans are almost the most beat up team in the league. I think they're really, they're like 31, I think, out of 32. So they've got some serious, things to think about in the offseason and get healthy, particularly as it relates to their O-line, because that's a mess. They need some more playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, they've got some work to do. All right, so that was the winner's circle. I like that comment. I think it says Jags are trending up. And yes, they are. Shameless plug. If you go to stadiumrant.com/NFL, Kev actually wrote a really nice article about the Jaguars offense and how it has arrived and how they're trending up and how that could help them win the division. It's a really, really good article. Go read that. Talks a lot about Trevor Lawrence and his ascension right now. All right, let's talk playoffs. So we're going to go through this one pretty quickly because I still want to get through the NFL pick'em. But all right, so your Buffalo Bills, they have clinched the AFC East.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs, AFC West clinch, which I think that one is probably more shocking because people had the Raiders. There's my watch chiming in. But I think people had the Raiders, maybe even win the division, or the Broncos, which, side note, Nathaniel Hackett was fired this week, if you didn't, see that. That's a whole nother.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, that's a whole nother situation. We'd probably take up an entire show talking about the Broncos and the hot mess express that they are.
And Meg, one second, please.
Yeah.
Anybody that had any team other than the Chiefs winning the AFC West, y'all are ridiculous. Like, there was no reason. There was no reason to ever think that if Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now, the best quarterback in the NFL right now, I don't understand how people just would think that, okay, well, he's just going to have a tremendous fall off and all of that. Like, I never understood it.
Tyreek was gone. That's 30%
he still has Kelsey, who is the best tight end in the NFL. And then they added a bunch of pieces.
That'd still be the best team in the NFL.
You said what?
Even if they don't have Kelsey, I'm sure they'd plug in some other guy that would make.
I mean, they have a number of weapons that essentially they just spread the ball out even more. Like
exactly. Instead of it going to two players, it goes to like 6 now. Like
yeah. I was gonna say they did some
Who's
really
Isaiah Pacheco, and why is he one of the best players on the team?
I was just talking about that. They did some really good work in the offseason. Go get Pacheco. Go get Juju. You get Valdez Scantling. Like it's working there. It works.
When those moves happen, you're like, if you saw it on the on like the Panthers, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's like a good move for them. If you see it on the Chiefs, you're like, oh god, there's gonna be like a Pro Bowler now.
They got Tony. Tony's out there playing lights out, and he was terrible with the Giants. You're like, what is happening?
Right.
And I think Juju is close to 1,000 yards, or has hit 1,000 yards. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I just didn't understand everybody's, because we know, okay, Andy Reid may not do the best with quarterbacks, but we know what he does with wide receivers. He's good with helping, getting wide receivers in the right spots and stuff. He did it in Philly. He's doing it now. Like, I didn't understand it. And the Raiders added the shiny new toy, but like, it's still Derek Carr at the end of the day, and it's still Josh McDaniels. So I mean,
yeah, and you had Herbert, Herbert, who's never made the playoffs. Obviously, congrats to him, finally did this year, but he never made the playoffs. Why is he going to just all of a sudden like win the division over a team that's won it religiously over the last 7 seasons? It makes no sense. And then to Chris's point, like, as great as Reed is with progressing wide receivers, then you still got Eric Bieniemy, So as long as you have him as the OC and that Mahomes trusts, you're gonna have the OC. He's had his whole career.
There he goes.
The head coach, he's had his whole career. Yeah, of course, he needs to be a head coach. He should have been in the last 3 years. So you got such a trusting foundation there that there's like no doubt in my mind that they were gonna be a 12, 13 win team. So yeah, it is ridiculous that anybody thought that the Raiders or Broncos would have won this year.
I mean, I have to give. I've been giving Ashley Baker grief about this all off season because she said that she had the Raiders winning this division like way back in the off season. I think it was right after they'd gotten Devontae Adams and everything else. And at the time that felt like nasty work to me. I was like, what? I'm sorry, what? And hey, the Raiders had high expectations, but I never had them overtaking the Chiefs in the division. They've now won 7 straight. Like, come on now. We got to be serious about this. All right, I'll get off my high horse about the Chiefs. All right, so the Bengals, they have a playoff berth. The Ravens got a playoff berth. The Chargers, as we know from that horrific Monday Night Football game yesterday, have a playoff berth. Side note, I don't want to see us in primetime, like, again for a while.
We have to at least have one game.
No, so just cut it out. Like, stop. Nobody needs to be subjected to this. Stop. All right. So Buffalo can clinch home field advantage and a first round bye if they win and they have a Kansas City loss. Cincinnati can clinch the AFC North with a win and a Baltimore loss. And Miami will clinch a playoff berth with a Miami win and a Jets loss. So there's some potential scenarios coming on for the AFC. For the NFC side, the Eagles have a playoff berth. As we know, the Vikings won the NFC North. The 49ers won the NFC West. The Cowboys have a playoff berth. And here's where it gets interesting. The Eagles can clinch the division with a win or a Dallas loss, which is very possible. They can also clinch the number 1 seed, home field advantage, and a first-round bye with a win or a Dallas loss, plus a San Francisco loss, plus a Minnesota loss. So they need a weird sort of thing to happen there for all that to happen. But crazier things have happened in the playoffs. It is that. Tampa Bay, as terrible as they have been, will clinch the NFC South division title with a win, which is just insane to me. The Giants also can clinch a playoff berth with a win or several things happening. A Washington loss and a Seattle loss, or a Washington loss, a Detroit loss, and a Green Bay loss, or a Detroit loss, a Seattle loss, and a Green Bay loss, which is crazy.
Giants are going to clinch the playoffs on Sunday.
Listen, we know, Chris. We know. I had to put it out there on the table. Like, we know. And one last one. The Commanders can clinch a playoff berth if they win and they have a Detroit loss and a Seattle loss and a Green Bay loss. So they do need quite a bit of help to make that happen. And I just saw another comment about Josh Jacobs wanting out of Vegas. Yes, if you saw that clip, that man has had it. He is over it. Free that man. He is definitely over it in Vegas. All right, so we're now coming to the portion of the show where we do the rapid fire pick 'em. This is week 17, and it starts with, I feel like I'm talking about the AFC South all the time. I don't like all this. Like, leave us out of this. We don't know. But Thursday Night Football is Dallas Cowboys at Tennessee Titans. Nick, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I got Dallas, no doubt. They need these wins, and a little pixie dust from a Philly loss potentially. But Tennessee, as you said, from Tennessee, the sky's falling. In my opinion, there is no sky. Like, it's over. Like, they have nothing anymore. If you're going this way and the team that you're competing with is going this way, it's not going to change, Like, they've shown me no reason that they're changing their ways. So, Dallas.
Yeah, I've got Dallas as well. Tennessee's offense has just looked completely lifeless and really strange over the last several weeks.
Against that defense, I'm concerned.
Yeah, the defense also is very depleted. They've been banged up on injuries, and it shows it. So give me Dallas Cowboys. Chris, I assume you have Cowboys as well for this one.
Yeah. I got the Cowboys. I'm with Nick on what he was saying. Your team's trending this way. The team is going this way. It's no way. Yeah.
I got you. All right. Let's start with the Sunday game. So, barn burner, Cardinals at Falcons. So this is Trace McSorley against Desmond Ridder.
Oh, we got to go to this one. Let's go to this game.
To my husband, if you're listening, apparently we have to go to the Falcons game on Sunday. I hope you heard that.
No, let's go.
I don't give me the Falcons in this one. Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Desmond Ridder needs some picking up of his spirit. Poor guy. Give me the Falcons. What do you got, Nick?
I'm gonna take Arizona just because I just watched them play Tampa tough. I don't know why I'm, holding Tampa in a high regard, but I don't know why I'm doing that. But I just don't trust rookie. He's not even a rookie quarterback. He's a late, insertion of a rookie quarterback. He hasn't even had a full season.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Trace McSorley who's making a second start. I'm just gonna take Arizona in this game.
Chris, what do you got?
For my purposes, I'm going with Arizona. Arizona wins.
Sure.
Colts move up to top 4.
Yeah, I knew it. I like to hear you say it out loud. All right. So Steelers at Ravens. Nick, who do you got in this one?
Yeah. So obviously Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin's on like the for a losing season. 2 wins in a row at the end of the year. They would not have a losing season. But I am going to go with Baltimore at home here. I think Lamar might be back here this week. And if he is, then I think they roll.
Yeah, give me the Ravens at home. That's all I got. Ravens at home. Yeah. All right, Bears at Lions. Who do you got in this one?
I gotta take the Lions. Obviously, Chicago's also vying for that number 1 pick, and the Lions, they're not out of it yet, so they still have a chance.
Yeah, give me the Lions at home. I hope they rebound after that horrific whatever that was. Play against the Panthers. I hope that they get it together. All right, Jags at Texans. Now I'm going to hop in here because I will say this: the Texans have given the Jaguars fits, and if you remember earlier in the year, the Texans did beat the Jaguars. That was their 1 win for the year. So let me preface that by saying, and Chris, this is the AFC South. I'm going to get you in this one on this one. Who do you have, Jags at Texans?
So, I mean, I would love for the Texans to win, and it's a possibility. Like if they won, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think the Jaguars are. I guess the Texans are kind of trending upward too because they've been playing a lot of teams tough.
They really
yeah.
They've been playing like real tough, and I mean, I said this on the show I was on earlier today that the Texans are trying to play spoiler. It's at the point of that season where they believe they probably had the number 1 pick, shored up. And so at this point, they really want to play spoiler. It's time to ruin somebody else's chances. And how fitting would it be for the Texans to send the Jaguars out of the playoffs? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter because if they win against Tennessee, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'm going with the Jags, but I wouldn't be shocked at the upset by the Texans.
All right, Nick, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Houston wins this game, they're coming dangerously close into my top 10 of the power rankings. They've been hot, they're on the bender. But no, I'm taking Jacksonville, and that's not going to happen. So Trevor Lawrence is going to have a good game.
You know what? Give me the Texans. Why not? Why not? Give me the Texans in a quote unquote upset. Now again, Jags have been playing much better football since then, but they did beat them earlier in the season. They played them very tough. These interdivisional games can go anybody's way. So give me the Texans.
That's a fact.
Especially in the
South. I'm with it, Meg.
Especially in the South. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with it, Meg, because if they win this game and then they beat us next week, the following week, hey.
Number 1 pick me, please.
Pick me up. Pick me up.
All right. So Broncos at Chiefs. I think I could probably say that this is all like we're all gonna pick the Chiefs here, right? Like this feels like nasty work to pick anything other than the Chiefs. Chris is like laughing so hard, but
I'm thinking the Chiefs.
Yeah, especially because we're not doing spreads.
Yeah. All right, Miami at New England. Now this becomes very interesting. I think Tua likely doesn't play because of the concussions, and Mac Jones has not been playing great. So who do you got in this one, Nick?
Yeah, I'm gonna take New England. They play hard at the end of the year in Foxborough, I guess. I mean, they did last week. Cincinnati's a top 3 AFC team, and somebody said like yesterday to me that the top 3 AFC teams are the top 3 NFL teams. So I mean, that's very possible that that's true. And since they played them so hard, why wouldn't they play Miami, who's kind of trending down 4 losses in a row without their quarterback on the road? Tough. It's crazy to say it's a tough ask for Miami to go in there and actually win this game. So I'm going to take New England.
Yeah, I've got New England as well. It's hard to win in Foxborough, let alone when you probably are potentially down your starting quarterback as well. And the Patriots defense now, while it's not been as consistent as you would like it to be, they still have some game records on there. Matt Judon particularly. So if you've got a
Only give up
quarterback who
22
isn't,
points to Cincy.
what'd you say?
Only give up 22 points to Cincy, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, considering how since he's been on a tear.
Mhm.
Yeah, give me Patriots at home. All right, Colts at Giants. Give me the Giants. Like, just go ahead. Just if you watched, God bless you if you watched any of that game last night. If you weren't a Colts fan, you actually watched that Monday Night Football. At this point, it does not matter who the quarterback of the Colts is, because at this rate, I'm still surprised that Matt Ryan has all 4 of our wins, given how terrible this offense looks. By all and large, please. At this point, it just needs to be the Giants. I feel so bad for our defense, but yeah, give me the Giants.
Yeah.
Some Colts fan tried to tell me if Matt Ryan would have started the whole season, we would be making a playoff push. as if he's not 4-7-1 as a starter. But
let me say this. You know how I feel about Matt Ryan at one point. Like, I still think he's an awesome human being. Like, don't let me take that away. Like, the dude's amazing. He's a great human being. But his play has not helped, and neither has the rest of the offense helped. I think, Matt Ryan has given us, oddly, I can't believe I'm saying this, he's given us the best chance at winning games. But
he has, for sure.
But the games are just, the offense is brutal. It just is what it is. It's very brutal. It doesn't matter if it's Sam, Nick, Matt, like, it's bad. It's all the way bad.
They all kind of just blend together, right?
At this point, like, I honestly thought to myself yesterday, why don't we just put in Sam, for the love of all that is holy? Like, after Nick threw his 3rd pick, I was like, why isn't Sam in? Like, what is happening? What was happening? Let me get off my chest, off my soapbox. All right, New Orleans at Eagles. Nick, who you got in this one? This is an interesting, intriguing matchup.
It really is, just because the Saints are still, in play for that NFC South title, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I'm gonna take Philly. They're coming off a loss. Obviously, still not gonna have Hurts, but just they're gonna have a little bit more than New Orleans does, and they have such an amazing roster. Obviously, number 1 seed in the NFC, so they still need to win these games. No Jalen Hurts. Tough one to win. It's not going to be a blowout, in my opinion, but Philly does pull it out.
Yeah, I would take Philly as well. Gardner Minshew is still a gamer. He tried his hardest to play spoiler to the Cowboys. But I would think that here, the Saints are a little bit beat up, and they've been competitive in games, but obviously not able to finish as many games they wanted to this season. So give me the Eagles at home. All right, another NFC South matchup. So this is Panthers at Bucks. I can't even believe that this division is the stuff of nightmares. Who do you got, Nick?
Yeah, so obviously the last 2 weeks, Carolina beat Seattle in Seattle, and then they beat Detroit. I've been impressed with them, and I have not been impressed with Tampa. So I'm actually going to go with Carolina, and I think that they're going to win the division.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna go with the Panthers as well. They pleasantly surprised me with their play in Seattle, and they completely, bulldozed the Lions, which was not on my bingo card whatsoever. No. Steve Wilkes has got them playing some very inspired football. Yeah, there it goes. Panthers interim head coach has done a great job with them. Absolutely. I feel like he needs to get some consideration at the end of the season there. So yeah, give me the Panthers. All right. We got Browns at Commanders. Nick, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Commanders. I like how they play at home over how they play on the road, and just Cleveland hasn't looked good. Maybe they will next year. Maybe Watson gets his stuff together, but this year is not. And we knew that was going to happen with the rust. We knew it was going to happen on the road. Tough ask for Cleveland to go into Washington. Washington, a team that needs these games, so I'm gonna take Washington.
Yeah. Give me the Commanders. Now, this is also very interesting because we don't know if this is going to be Heineke or if this is going to be Wentz, which is such a weird dynamic too this season. I have nothing left. But yeah, I'm still going to take Commanders regardless. I think that Cleveland is just, they lost their chance when the Saints took away their playoff hopes. So Give me the Commanders at home. All right, 49ers at the Raiders. Nick, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one just because usually it's tough to win in Las Vegas. Not really this year, obviously, with the record, but San Francisco, be really surprised if they lost this game, although I could kind of see it happen, but I'm just going to stick with my guns, stick with San Francisco because they are my Super Bowl pick coming out of the NFC, so I got to go with them.
Yeah, I've got San Francisco as well. The Raiders they're such an interesting team to me. They're very, very up and down. There are times where you're like, oh, okay, they finally gotten their lives together, and then they come back down to earth.
Yeah.
Even with getting Waller and Renfro back, still just not great football down the stretch. So give me the 49ers. That defense is lethal.
Yeah.
All right, Jets at Seahawks. Now, this is an interesting matchup, too. Mike White is back. At quarterback, Zach Wilson is effectively benched for the rest of the season. So now it's Mike White versus Geno. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Zach obviously is never going to play in New York again, but I saw somebody say to Zach's mom, like, obviously we love your son. We took him in with open arms, but like also at the end he said like, thank God he's benched. And then the mom actually replied she said something like, it's impossible to play in New York with your toxic fan base. And I was like, wow. So apparently they have a toxic fan base. I've kind of known that for years, but I'm going to go with the Jets and their toxic fan base this week because I love Mike White and I love what he brings. And Seattle's been on a really bad, turnaround of what they've had during the season. So I'm going to take the Jets. They need these games and they're going to probably slide into that 7th seed.
Now, I did read that that message that was on Instagram, Zach Wilson's mom says they were fake, but
yeah. Oh, okay.
So we'll see.
I hope they are because that'd be crazy.
Well, I'll say this. The Jets fans are certainly very passionate. You heard them actively booing Zach Wilson when he was playing. They remind me, obviously, a lot of Philly fans, like very high expectations. And when it doesn't meet, they're like, boom, out. Yeah. But to that point, I thought it was very interesting that the only reason Zach Wilson was playing was because of the Mike White injury. It's clear that he has lost the team, and it's clear that the team doesn't believe in him anymore. When Mike White was starting, you're seeing players in the T-shirts and everything else like that. You never saw that in the Wilson era, ever. So this is clearly Mike White's team. I'm actually going to take the Jets here over the Seahawks. I think that Mike White just brings a different sort of chemistry and vibe to that offense. He plays pretty clean football as well. The players respond well to him. I think it's a good win for them. All right, last one. Your Bills at Bengals. Of course, I think you're going to take your Bills, right?
Yeah, I'm going to take my Bills. This is a really tough game. Obviously, a lot of people say it's the game of the year potentially, but I don't think it's anything's going to beat the Bills-Vikings game. But it's gonna be awesome in the bright lights, Monday night in Cincy. Really tough game, but if we do win it, we should lock up that number 1 seed. So I'm gonna take us.
I'm actually gonna take the Bengals. I like the Bengals at home, even though I think the Bills will give them a very nice game. I think the Bengals and Joe Burrow's playing some great football late down the stretch, and the Bengals have really come alive. You're getting a lot out of Chase and Higgins. Yeah, give me and what Mixon is back now. So give me the Bengals.
T. Higgins has to be the best number 2 in the league. He's got to be.
Got to be easily. Yep. Got to be. Devonta Smith might have some things to say about that too, but
All right, so he's the best number 2 in the AFC.
Yeah, of course. All right, so that is the end of our show. We appreciate you, and Chris, thanks so much for hopping on with us as well. And John, if you're still listening, we hope you feel better. We certainly missed all of your dad jokes this week, so I'm sad that I didn't get those. But Chris stepped in right on great with all of his jokes as well. Of course, make sure that you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you get all of the notifications, not only for our show, but for the other shows that we have as well. Just want to read off the quick lineup of those. That is Another Damn Fantasy Podcast. We have Rumbles of Red, which focuses on daily fantasy sports. And then The Bounce, which is our basketball-focused show. That's with Kev and James as well. Kev and James as well. All right. One final thing. Of course, you can find all of our content on stadiumrant.com/NFL, and you can find us on Spotify if you type in NFL on Stadium Rant Podcast into the search bar there. As always, there are no flags for roughness here, but the comments are always necessary, and we'll be back. We'll see you after week 17. Peace out, Girl Scout.
Thanks. Bye.